What's up, everyone? Welcome. We are live right now in the CannaBuzz community. And if you're watching us right now on YouTube, please like and subscribe. We've got a great episode for you today. We have Brett from Heart and Soil Seeds. He's been going on all sorts of adventures. You might actually recognize him or remember him from our channel. We caught up with him just a couple months ago at the very beginning of the summer at the Duke Grows Fest, or Dude Grows Cup out in Denver, and we had a quick little bit of a teaser interview, and now we're excited to connect with Brett and dive deeper into his story and how he's been kind of been able to travel, and cannabis is kind of intermixed with all of that, so we're very excited to dive into that. But before I get too far into it, I just have to do one big shout out, and that shout out is to everyone in our CannaBuzz community. We've got the live stream going. Like I just said at the top, we are live in CannaBuzz and CannaBuzz only. But if you want to join us in CannaBuzz, you can do that by searching CannaBuzz in the App Store, download the app, and use our code GROWERSLOVE for 50% off. You can join for $4.20 a month. And why do we have that? It just helps us support the show, keeps us going, helps us send out seeds, which we do every single week. We send out to someone who joins us in the chat and says hi. So thanks for being a part of that. And please join us over there at, you can just join us in the web browser. Go to cannabuzz.app in your browser. But let's get into it. Today we have Brett from the Heart and Soil Project. He's got an amazing story from Texas. He moved to Colorado. He's hiked the Inca trails. He's been getting into jadam and microbials and nutrients and all sorts of things. So we're going to be getting all into it. But JR, how would you like to kick off today's show with Brett?
Well, first of all, we always got to give our shout outs to TikiMadMan. I talked to Tiki yesterday, and he's still got that Tropic Zope out there. And that is the Z Skittles, Pink Z Skittles by Zope. And with that one, you get a bar of soap. So go ahead and check out Tiki. He's making it fun. He did tell me he's bringing down a bunch of stuff. So he's going to have a whole new line of stuff for people to choose from, a bunch of new flavors coming out. He also wanted me to let you all know that the King Kong clone site, he's reduced a lot of the prices on there. A lot of people have been really excited about that permanent marker. He's got the official cut on there for $85. So he's really made some of the cuts more affordable for, folks who are in a tent who maybe can't, always, regenerate, and they need to reset their tent. So yeah, check out the King Kong clones and tikiseeds.com.
Nice. Well, so Brett, before we were getting started, you were asking me about if you can smoke on stream or whatever, and I just noticed I have just the tail end of a joint from that I was smoking earlier. So what are you smoking on these days? And I guess as you talk about that, lead us. We like to get started with the start of our interviews. Kind of talk to us about how you got involved with cannabis, like how you fell in love with it. But first, obviously, let me know what you were enjoying.
Right now, I'm smoking on rosin. I got some Private Reserve Papaya BX4 from a friend of mine, and then some Peach Crescendo and Apple Fritter. So I typically, when it comes to flower, like I'm kind of picky, and I only want to smoke my own, or somebody very close to me that I know has grown it, the way I like it to be grown in living soil, and without any pesticides and all that fun stuff. So I don't smoke a whole lot of flower unless I have a flower run that has come down in the last 12 months, which I smoked all that. I got rid of it. So it's that. So we're about to do another pheno hunt here soon. But yeah, right now it's lots of rosin, and I like sativa dominant hybrids if I can get them, so I can function during the day.
Nice.
But in terms of how I kind of got into cannabis, I was always kind of curious, because my cousins back in Las Vegas, they were just a couple years older than me, and they were always sneaking around. At first I didn't know what they were doing, and then I figured out they were smoking, and and I just wanted to try it, and eventually I just ended up I think they had like a blunt that they had like half a blunt that they like were gonna save for later, and they like left it outside, or so, and I like went and smoked like half of it, and I was like, oh, okay, and I think I was like, I don't know, like 12 at the time or something, and I wasn't able to get weed for myself for like another year or two, but once I did, that was kind of like that was that kind of the thing, that we were always like, all right, who's going to pitch in, who's getting the weed. So, and that was in a state where, in Texas, they throw you the book at you for, sticks and stems, or seeds and stems. So it was an interesting time to be doing it.
So
So
when you
just like the
say
rest of us.
throw the book at you, kind of give people an idea what that really means.
I mean, they'll take you to jail straight up, for there was no slaps on the wrists or anything like that. If you had any kind of cannabis whatsoever, everyone in the car was going to jail, and you could be on probation for 6 months or 2 years. It just depends on if it's your first time or things like that. So, and you go to jail. You're only typically for your first cannabis offense. If you're only going to jail for a day or two, something like that. You might end up having to do some time or pay some fines. But like if you get caught 2 or 3 times, I mean, they'll send you off for months or years. And that was for a very small amount. I was never really handling like pounds or anything like that at the time. So that's a whole different story. With intent to distribute all that, they'll take your life away. And they still will. They still will. It's still like that in Texas. So, yeah, that's
Yeah,
part of the reason that's part of
it's
the reason
very
I had to get out of there.
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I find that interesting. A lot of people do kind of find refuge in places where their community and their lifestyle is more accepted. So, kind of tell us about you leaving Texas and arriving in Colorado.
Yeah, I graduated from college and met my wife, soon to be wife. I asked her to marry me, and once I asked her to marry me, I was like, okay, let's figure out where we want to be. We don't want to end up in Texas, so we thought about California, we thought about Oregon. We knew somebody in Colorado. We thought about Colorado, and we came visit for about 2 weeks and just fell in love with it. We drove all over and kind of just got to know the state, and like I said, just fell in love with it. We basically went back to our house and packed up all our stuff. A month later, we got a tiny little U-Haul and, a couple $1,000 and just came out here with a hope and a dream. And she had a job at like a Texas Roadhouse, as a waitress or something. And that was guaranteed, and I had nothing. And it was like, all right, well, we know we want to, end up somewhere where cannabis is legal. And I saw people were out here making a living, doing what they loved, and I just wanted to be part of it. So that's the whole reason I came out here, and to kind of just get immersed in the cannabis industry and community. And I wasn't able to get a job here as soon as I got here in the cannabis industry for about 2 years, but I started growing within about 2 weeks after being here. So I just started getting my hands in the soil and doing all kinds of trial and error and all that fun stuff. So yeah, that was kind of the trip to Colorado was pretty quick, and kind of we made a decision pretty quickly, and just shot out here.
Yeah. For just a real quick double click on part of that journey, because a little bit of your story just reminded me of myself when I moved out to California. I didn't even have a place to. I had a job, but I didn't have a place to live. But so I flew out and I just started looking for places on Craigslist and lived out of a hotel basically until I found a place. But and I was young, and one of the big lessons I took from that experience and several others is like when you have the ability, when you're in your situation in life, to take chances, take opportunities, take them. And so on that point, I also just wanted to have you talk about, you moved out here, you didn't have a gig you moved out to Colorado, you didn't have a gig in cannabis. but you eventually, made something happen. Talk to us about a little bit that intervening time, because that's a hard time when you
Oh
doubt
man.
yourself. You think you're a loser because you look on Instagram and there's people like crushing it with giant ass greenhouses or whatever, and you're like, what am I doing wrong that they did right or whatever? So talk to us about that, because I think that's one of the hardest times that people go through.
It's like I always like thought, you got to start somewhere. Yeah, like no one gets 10 years experience without starting at year one. So it's just like it was early enough. I felt like in the industry, I was like, I did feel good about what I was doing because at least I started growing right off the bat. Now I wasn't, doing it well or anything like that. It was like a, 2x2 by 5 foot tall tent in the, 3x3 or something like that, in my bedroom. But yeah, I was like, I was working all kinds of odd jobs while I was just trying to grow and learn. But yeah, I worked, what was the first thing I did? I worked at a security company. So I was an accounts man. First, they hired me for an accounts manager for a security company. And I did have a college degree, and I was hoping I'd be able to get some sort of management job. And it was a management job, but it was like sorry, I get messages. It was there was like 180 accounts, and there was a guard, to 3 guards per account. And I was in charge of hiring. I was in charge of firing. I was in charge of training guards on each account. It was like it was chaos. And the guy and like I was all over the state. I was all over the city. You imagine like, I mean, they were paying these guys like, I mean, pennies. I don't even know. It was like $15 an hour, something like that. Some of them even had guns. And it was like, and, they were security guards.
Right.
And it was just kind of eye opening to like the back end of like society and who's actually securing our places. A lot of these people are like, just trying to get by, and they'll take we had a lot of theft, from our guards, a lot of, showing up drunk or high or whatever, a lot of, like I said, lots of stealing. So it was like a constant, like weird, and I was managing people that were way older than me. So it was just kind of a weird situation. And I also did roofing sales. So I like knocked doors, selling roofs. I made some good money doing that. I'm a decent salesman, but like I really didn't like it. I used to sell like in Home Depot. The guys would come up to you and be like, "Hey, let me help you fix your,
Yeah.
fix your kitchen or whatever." I did that for a little bit. I did all kinds of stuff just to kind of, and a lot of them were like overlapping. I'd be doing, 2 jobs and getting
Right.
two little paychecks at once to kind of make it.
So what was the thing that when you finally made it, if you will, or what is
Oh,
that kind of period of time, I guess, that you're marking where you're like, now I'm in cannabis? What was that thing, and what kind of made that happen?
so in 2011, in April 2011, that's when we actually moved here. And about a year, was it almost 2 year, almost 2 years after that is when I got my first gig with Kind Love. And I was working in their R&D division. And I didn't have any cannabis experience whatsoever. And they gave me a chance, and I'll be forever grateful to Michael and Leaf and the guys who, gave me that opportunity, and the people that, taught me, because I didn't know anything. I was just, I had done some like, organics myself and blah, 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 in my garage and different places. And, but this was big show. This was, they were using salts, and they were doing, pHing, parts per million. It was running like a well-oiled machine, there at the end. First was the R&D division. And I was, lucky enough to learn how to do cloning and popping seeds from a very early time coming into the industry. Like I was mopping the floors too. I was like a glorified janitor, but like they did give me a lot of opportunities to like learn how to, from seed and clone on, where like a lot of people come in, they're like, yeah, start defanning this plant. And it's like, well, what's going on? They're like, just defan the plant. I was like lucky enough to come in, and they were like teaching me how the plant grows and like the best way is to, give it its best chances from the beginning. So that was pretty cool. And I really appreciated that aspect of it.
What's up, everyone? We're going to get right back to the interview in just a second, but first I need to give a shout out to one of our sponsors, Terploc, the makers of Grove bags. This is a Grove bag right here. This is a 1/4 pound. You can store a whole 1/4 pound of weed that's been dried first. You dry it in your tent or something like that. Dry it for about 10 to 14 days, and then you throw it in a Grove bag. So you can get rid of your jars, put it in a Grove bag, you seal it up, and you don't have to worry about burping or anything like that. The bag takes care of the moisture release, and it makes sure that it keeps everything at a consistent humidity level. So check out Grove Bags. Go to grovebags.com. Use your code CannaBuzz for 7% off. Let them know that you came from the CannaBuzz podcast, and score yourself some bags and cure your weed to perfection. Let's get back to the interview.
So with your experience now that you have, so what's your favorite rooting hormone?
I just use the good old Purple Hulk stuff. I used to use Clonex gel, Clonex solution, and a product called Clear Res. And I find that
what I use.
that those are like,
Yeah.
And it's just tried and true. That's what we used at Kind Love. We made Kind Love was known and is still known for their clones. And we made that happen at the R&D division. We were, and I was lucky. I was part of the cloning at the end, and we were pumping out some of the best clones in the state, maybe the country, coming through Kind Love. You could, buy, clones, and those clones were clean, and we had it down to a freaking science. And that's the method we were using, is that the same method you're using. So we were using clone machines, like the
aeroponic cloners.
Aeroponic cloners. But we had issues with like the power going out. We had issues with things like issues that would cause the power to whatever. And then if you have the power down for more than 30 minutes, that's pretty rough on that.
Not good.
So we found that the domes and the cubes, that's just and so I've been doing that for years now, and I get 99% success rate, and just shove them in there. And I have a method, a couple of different things I do, but yeah, that's the rooting hormone that I use.
Before we move into the next section, where we're going to talk about you on the Inca trails and that kind of journey, I wanted to ask you, I think one of the things that our viewers like about our show is we have these like little tidbits sprinkled throughout the shows. So I'm going to double click on this thing too. Let's talk about mothers real quick. So, because JR was texting me some tips, because I've made clones of some plants that I think I want to keep around, some plants that I have in the backyard that I grew from seed, or one of them's cherry paloma, just things I want to keep around. So I'm gonna start re-vegging them in a 4x4, or I've already in the process of doing that. Any tips of kind of about growing mothers and then taking those clones and like where to take them from? I just love your tips there.
Whenever we were doing massive amounts of clones, we would take clones from every inch of that plant, top, bottom, middle, and they rooted about the same. Maybe 12 hours difference, a day difference, maybe between, a top and a bottom. Some people, say that the bottoms have more hormone and only take clones from the bottom. We took clones from we did topping to shape our mothers, because if you're doing massive amounts of cloning, you were like preparing these clones, preparing these teens, to be mothers, right? You're topping them, you're training them. So yeah, and all in the process, we would take tops and bottoms and whatever. So you can take them from any part of the plant. The key is healthy tissue, strong, healthy tissue. You don't want really like calloused tissue or like too brand new growth. You want it to be like somewhat mature growth, in my opinion. But like and you don't want it to be like wiggly. I like a stiff point to cut and to poke.
Nice.
But I've done it. And with big giant tops that are as thick as your thumb or thicker. And I've done it with tiny little clones that are this big. You're like, I gotta get a clone from this before I go to
Yeah,
flowers,
totally. I've done
you know?
that.
So, like the key is just make sure your plant overall is healthy. And
Right.
if you're, the day before, I like to give it a watering, or the day of, give it a nice watering and make sure it's like drinking and whatever nutrients you want it to have. But yeah, that's my take on cloning is healthy tissue, healthy plants, any,
Yeah.
any, any area, and just the technique after that is the key.
And then on mothers, real quick, how long do you kind of keep mothers around? Because JR was telling me kind of like turn them and burn them, basically. Like get your clones and then, do with what you will and then create a new mother.
Yeah, and it's some people, like I said, this is all a personal preference and need based. It's like if you have, you know, if you're trying to get, say, 500 clones, right, to fill a room, and you have two mothers, but you have to get 500 clones from those. Could take you 6 months or 12 months, but the boss says, I need 500 plants. I need a room full of cherry paloma, right? So how long are you going to veg that, right? A long time. And you might even take clones. You might even take those clones, make those mothers, and have the mothers be next to the children, and like so on and so forth, until you get enough plant matter to take 500 clones. So, and then some people will take that. I know a guy who had a sour diesel clone that was like 10 years old, that he kept the mother around for 10 years and
Wow.
just kept taking topped it, bottomed it, topped it, bottomed it, topped it, bottomed it, and just made this like beast. I mean, the thing was like,
Yeah.
ugh,
Seriously.
right? And that some of that tissue does get a little older, but I would say, a cannabis is an annual plant. Like my simple answer to like, yes, you can keep it for 6 months, you can keep it for 6 years, but cannabis is an annual plant. And typically I would say after 13 months, either flower it out or get rid of it.
Yeah.
That's my take on it.
Cool.
My kind of logic behind the turn and burn method is the longer you have it around, the more susceptible to disease and
Totally.
stress and fatigue and all that.
And it doesn't get better with age. Like once
No.
it gets to like a year old, like flower that lady out. It's like they don't get better with age. Most
Right.
things. Let's just be honest. Let's just be honest. There's a prime time for things in life, and you can take things past their prime, but it's like at what cost? If you need
Right.
to keep that clone around, right, and you need to do something, you make it happen. But like, yeah, like he says, like I would say, turn it, like let it live its life. It wants to
Right.
flower out, right? It wants to be
Fair.
done.
Cool. I appreciate you guys let me take that little bit of a detour. So let's go into the Inca Trails. JR, do you want to kick us off with that first one?
Yeah, so at some point you had to be presented with this opportunity, and what made you decide to just kind of bug out and head to Peru?
So I had a good friend of mine that was just at the time, we're not the best friends anymore. This trip was kind of a point that was, I went, we didn't go. It wasn't a cannabis trip by any means. It was a Peru. Machu Picchu was like one of my bucket lists. I always wanted to hike the Inca Trail. I heard like just stories of it, and just Indiana Jones vibes. I want to go experience the culture. So we went, and we went and actually just stayed in hostels and ate the local food, and got a guide, went on a trip with like 4 or like 6 other people, and camped along the way, and hiked up this mountain, and it like snowed at the top of the mountain, and went down the mountain, and there was like banana trees and like
That's wild.
like every kind of like everything you can imagine. But why did I go there? For the adventure, just to go experience, go get a hike in. I used to hike a lot of 14ers and 13ers are my favorite because there's less people. 13,000 foot peaks out here in Colorado, and 14ers are usually crowded by a lot of tourists and people just want to get a good hike in or whatever. But I was really like to go, hike big mountains, and this was like a 3-day hike, up a big giant mountain, and went to like, I think it was like I think it was like 13,000 feet. I think it was over there over the pass. And yeah, so the cannabis was kind of just like it found me, you know. We were it was before it was when we had gotten back. No, before we had went on the trip, we were in Cusco because we went through Cusco, went on the trail, and then came back to Cusco at the end. So we're in Cusco and we were going to one of the monuments, and I could smell it. You know, somebody is puffing on some herb. I'm like, where is that? So
Yeah.
kind of like went over, and they're like at the top of the monument behind it. There's like nobody really there, and I was like, oh, mota, see. I didn't know. I'm like, don't know hardly any Spanish. I'm the worst, you know, especially at the time. And they like looked at me, and I was like, can I buy some? And they're like, no, no, no. And they just gave it to me. They just gave me a bag of weed. Like it was probably like
nice.
an eighth of, and they were
Yeah.
buds. It wasn't like, it didn't look like swag. They were like actual. I was like, okay, and they're like, it's from here. Like they spoke broken English too. It's from Cusco. This weed from Cusco.
Very cool.
I was like, okay,
Yeah.
very cool. I was like, gracias, and they're like, yeah, they're like, have a good, like we shook hands, and that was it. My buddy was like, not about it. He does not smoke. He drank a little bit, but like he was not about being in a foreign country with weed on us at all.
Oh, okay.
So it was like a kind of like a, and then the fact that I brought the seeds back, he really wasn't about that either.
Yeah, yeah.
So there were some seeds in there.
I got two questions for you. First of all, did you try the kukui while you were there?
Yeah. So they call it just kui. I think they probably call it kukui in a couple areas, but I saw he's written that. But kui is what we know it as. It's guinea pig, and yeah.
Wow.
So yeah,
I hear that it's a very easy protein to raise and very productive, and it actually tastes delicious.
It's like, so it's like rabbit, like they reproduce like rabbits, like really quickly. And a lot of people there will keep them in their homes. They're really pretty clean. They're pretty clean, and they reproduce pretty fast. And a lot of people will keep them, like a big bunch of them, underneath their beds. It keeps their bed warm. It's crazy.
Wow, that's wild.
Like a bunch, like they like, they'll have like 30, 50, and they'll have like, their community, or like their bed. I was welcomed into a home, and they're like, and all the kui are just like running around, and like they have like their little house underneath their bed. Whoa. And they were claiming that it kept everything warm.
Wow.
So yeah, I had it, and it was good. It's a little oily. It's very rich. It's very rich meat.
Yeah.
So it's like a celebration. Like people will go and have kui for like a graduation or a birthday or something like that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've always been interested in that, and I think that I always try to help people kind of wrap their head around the idea there are more things to eat than pigs, cows, and chickens.
Oh yeah, and so like little things like that. I hate to say it, but like I feel like that's why God put those things on earth, is for things to consume. They breed so quickly. It's like mice, rabbits, things like that. They reproduce so quickly. It's like, they'll become an infestation if something doesn't eat them. So yeah, I think having a diverse palate is key. But they do it. A lot of times, a lot of things rise out of necessity. But those,
absolutely.
But they've become a delicacy there. Now it's like if you have a nice kui, it's like you can get a lot more for it than you could 50 years ago or whatever, 100 years ago, when it was just meat. Now it's like crab legs, where like they used to serve them to the prisoners, and they used to revolt over having to eat lobster all day and crab, and now it's like $100 plates. So that's how it goes.
So you were talking about the seeds that you got. Were those seeds just the seeds from that eighth, or did you score like more weed along the way? I wasn't sure if this like magical eighth like stretched you along your whole journey, or like what was that?
So we did get some more herb from. We smoked some herb with some friends, that had got some from Colombia. I think that they had gotten some from, but the seeds were from that bag. Yeah. So yeah, yes, and I wasn't getting like, I didn't have I don't even think I had a pipe. I like had to get some papers and like smoke tiny little joints around, like it wasn't like
Totally.
you could just do it freely. It was, it was a little bit, I mean, somebody could, but I was, a white guy in middle of Cusco. I was not trying to get caught up.
Yeah, I hear
And
you.
your buddy wasn't feeling it at
And he
all.
wasn't feeling it. He wasn't helpful. It wasn't helpful. It wasn't like a good vibe,
Right.
Yeah. So it was like I wasn't getting high a lot because he was like, dude, like I'm not trying to smell like pot. And I wanted to be respectful, I want to be respectful of him and his space. And I was, so it was all
Yeah.
good. But it just let us kind of know that we weren't really on the same path, because I was really excited about it. And at the time, I was growing for Greenpoint seeds. And so I had done a little breeding for them, and I was just excited about making this like kind of my first project.
Oh, cool. So how did you smuggle them home? Did you do the old like DVD case, or did you put them like
I put them in a piece of toilet paper. I wrapped them in some toilet paper, and I shoved it in a sock. I took that sock and I threw it in some like dirty underwear and shoved it in the corner of my bag.
There you go.
Like,
Beauty, eh?
Go through my dirty underwear into my sock and find a piece of toilet paper and be like, "Ooh, what is this?"
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, so it worked out well. I think there was like 9 seeds or something like that.
Wow.
It was a small amount of seeds.
So did you get home and instantly pheno hunt them all, or did you one by
Instantly.
one?
Oh no, I popped them all at once. Yeah, and found a male and 2 females. I mean, there was more plants, but like a male and 2 females that I felt were like least, like some of them were very, very, very sativa, like very thin leaf. But the ones I selected were a little bit more interesting OG than I had like anticipated, coming from that region. So there were some that were, very, like I said, very thin leaf sativa, stretchy, and some that were a little bit more slower growing and still had that sativa look, but it was thicker leaves. And some of them didn't have, like you got a 5 finger and you got these tails here.
Yeah.
There were no tails, and there were like 4. So there was like 4 leaves. They were a little more bubbly, and they didn't have the tails on them. There was less actual leaf on there. Then like sativa, you see like they're like sometimes you get like 6, 7, 8,
Yeah, exactly.
9 points. So many thin points, 10. And this was just more. I mean, just more of what I had been accustomed to. Growing for other companies and growing for Greenpoint. That like cannabis is more. Because there's super sativa stuff, obviously, and
Yeah.
I wanted something that was a little bit more balanced to start the project with. It's very sativa, and they finished, between 13 and 15 weeks, but they were like, less lanky and more buddy, than like an African haze or something like that. So
Are these like
Did
tall
the
plants? Sorry, JR.
All right, go ahead.
Are these like tall plants, or what do they grow? Like, I was just curious.
Yeah,
do they
so
like
some of them
stretch a
do
lot?
get really tall. There's 2 phenos that we started with, like, and one of them was more of a traditional, super fast grower, super tall, but the internode spacing was a little bit more stacked, and it was more like more buddy, like
Huh.
more actual bud. Where the other one was shorter, but it had like bigger internode spacing, but bigger buds.
Yeah.
So there was, like I said, there was just 2 kind of distinct phenos.
Interesting.
Like I said, I have like the cassava connection is one of our strains, for example, that was from, it's a Mozambique and Malawi cross, pure African sativa. That thing is thin leafed, thin branching, just goes nuts, and it's really small nugs. I mean, it's worth the smoke, but it's like you don't want to be the one trimming that thing. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
But this is more like nuggy, more bud, denser, and just more. I felt like.
What were the flavor profiles like, and did it taste like it smelled?
So it was really interesting. It had like a eucalyptus kind of thing going on, but also it was really most in it. There was some like brightness, some like almost like melon, some sort of sweet fruit. I would like melon or papaya, something like that. But also it had like this pink peppercorn. It was like a sweet but spicy thing
Huh,
going on,
interesting.
and it had like a mouthfeel that was like little jittery. Like if you ever smoke something, you're like, ooh, that's kind of like a little spicy. I like that, and it kind of
Yeah,
gives your
yeah.
mouth a little. That was like I had smoked a lot of weed. Well, at that point, I felt like I had smoked a lot of weed, and the flavor profile was like nothing I'd ever tasted before. So it was very exciting, and I was really hopeful for the cannabinoids that were in there, because it was the effects were relaxing, but also like euphoric at the same time, and not too paranoid or anything like that. So
in your mind, you would say that it was probably a hybrid of some sort.
well, it was a sativa definitely sativa dominant hybrid, but yeah, it was like I said, the finishing, you said some were 13 weeks and some were 15 weeks.
Yeah.
And then we're like the Malawi and the Mozambique. I mean, that's like where they started. It was like 15. I mean, some of them were just like, when is this thing
18,
ever going to
20.
stop? Yeah, like a true pure sativa, and that thing is racy and it is paranoid, but it's some people smoke it and they're like, this is what I needed to energize my day. This is like, so with that, but yeah, so this one's more of a balance, high that I feel like, because one thing I did learn about Peru was, the various elevations through there, lend to tons of different climates. The Mayans, I mean the Incas there, they had like they had farming down there in the bottom of the valley that was like cacao and coffee and things like that, bananas. But then they went all the way up the side of the hill. Basically, they have these different test sites, and they would plant beans in corn and figure out at what elevation things would grow best, and like the highest things, what they could grow at the highest levels. And so they were doing all different types of you know um you know potatoes, and that some of the most varieties of corn come from that region of the world. So I'm thinking same thing could have been done with cannabis. Who knows what different varieties they had in that region. So that's kind of like where my head starts to turn. It's like, well, what is this, right? All I know is from Peru, but it's like things that are Hawaiian, right, or Jamaican. A lot of those things weren't actually from those areas. They were brought from the Dutch or brought from here, right? So it's like, where did this originally come from? And was this bred here? So it's that's where it's like discovery and searching for strains makes it fun. For me, it's like kind of never ends. You can kind of go to all these different regions of the world and kind of collect things, but then you got to figure out where those things kind of maybe came from,
Originally
right?
came from, yeah.
Or if Greenhouse Seed Company had been there.
Yeah, Glass House.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I think there's I think there was a seed company like similar to that had gotten into Jamaica and they had thought that a lot of the strains that were coming out of Jamaica weren't actually Jamaican. They were from this Dutch seed company,
Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah, JR and I have talked a bit in the past about kind of where cannabis is originally from and how scientists are kind of have it nailed down to a region in China, and it's just so interesting to like you just said, like, so how did it get from China to Peru? Like somewhere, was it a long time ago, or was it
the spice trade, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
all these, somebody was, exactly. It was.
We were talking about how the cannabis plant has the ability to produce over 5 different terpenes or terpenoids in profiles. And so if you think about that, 500 different combinations, the math on that is astronomical in the amount of combinations and flavors and smells and tastes. And I think a point you brought up, and it's something you said, is that you had tasted something you had never tasted before. And so I think bringing in some of this stuff that's maybe on the outskirts that aren't part of this processed gene pool that we've kind of been filtering around in, I think is nice to bring some of that stuff back into the game. And so can you talk a little bit about your first crosses and which ones turned out amazing and which ones turned out like a nightmare?
Yeah. So we at the time I had been working for Kind Love and Greenpoint Seeds, and I made tons of connections. So I had Mac One was one of the strains that I had early on, that I did breed with that one. That one was a disappointment because it did not produce hardly any seeds. Right, you have to hit that one heavy early, tons of plant matter, and the seeds just aren't viable. So that was one that was just kind of a disappointment. One of the ones that was one of the better ones, we had 26 different varieties that we crossed with. I had two pretty much 10 by 10, we call them, rooms shoved full of plants. And it was everything that I had collected or could get my hands on within 6 months of getting those seeds popped, because I just wanted to go all out with this and just see what we could find. The one of them was a Mendo Breath Purple Punch cross that I had hunted from seed, that was outstanding. So that one was just outstanding from the beginning. We did testers on everything. So we sent out testers. I think we sent out, I don't know, like 500 packs of seeds or something like that. And one of them was Nancy Grow Space. Hopefully you see this, Nancy. It's a gentleman. But he was one of our first testers, and he found just a stellar pheno of this, what we call the Peruvian Punch. Mendo Breath Purple Punch Peruvian. And that's where the Peruvian Punch came from. And if you look through any of our lines, good chances that you're going to see that in there. It had just the chunkiest buds. If you flip through our at Heart and Soil Seeds Instagram, you'll find it somewhere. If not, I'll have to repost it. But it's purple. It's chunky. It's gassy. It's lavender, grape soda, Tim.
Yeah.
And then it leaves that kind of pink peppercorn spiciness on your palate. It's a great day smoke. It's a great night smoke. It's got that lavender thing that just kind of mellows you out, but it does, and it smacks you right between the eyes. It's got a high THC content. But the flavor profile and just the flexibility, I smoke that thing first thing I wake up in the morning or right before I go to sleep at night. It has its benefits, and it's not going to knock me out, but it's a great balanced high for me, and it's one of my favorites. And he sent me the cuts.
That's a beautiful thing. Yeah, I think that's great.
And I don't like to send cuts for a lot of reasons. Not everyone's good at sending cuts. It doesn't always work out. One of them made it out of the 3 he sent, and it was just scrawny, but it made it. And off of that Peruvian Punch, we made a lot of awesome strains. And there's a lot of other ones in the mixes that did well, but we weren't trying to just go hog wild, and we would that 26 shot was to see which ones were the best. We picked out the best, and that Peruvian Punch was the best out of everything. There's some other ones, Kim Con Leche. There's some other ones with the wedding cake and things like that did really well. But this one was the most unique and stood out shoulders above the rest. So yeah, that was really exciting, and it was really cool. I hadn't talked to Nancy in years, and he just reached out to me on Facebook. I've been banned from Facebook. Every 30 days, basically, I get banned on Facebook. But he got in touch. He got in touch with me, and he's like, "Hey, I was doing like who has the oldest pack of seeds?" And he had the pack of testers that I had sent him, because he goes, he had a different name, obviously, because this is Nancy Grosspace, you know. So I just connected him with about a week ago. We're gonna get him some more seeds to get rocking again.
Very
Um,
cool.
but that was fun. That was fun. That was like my first tester program. It was a great show out. People gave me a lot of great feedback. There were some issues with some strains. There were some, either herms or just overall lots of males or things like that with other things. So we just scrapped them. Scrapped the project. So we only went with the things that were working, and that Peruvian punch was working. It was working. It was working. So we made F2s. We did projects. Like I said, it was. We're still working with it today. I got some some F2s, Peruvian punch F2s in the flower room right now that I'm going to start flowering because I'm excited to smoke them myself. So
yeah, you offered me a few packs at the Dude Grows, and the 2 packs that I grabbed were of the Peruvian punch crosses, and I had no idea. Just out of instinct, I grabbed the 2 crosses that were that because I wanted something special that you had actually gone to this faraway land to get and bring back to us, and it's now part of our gene pool. So I think we all should thank you for that.
yeah, and I'm just blessed. Those three gentlemen, those 3 guys that were there. I'll never know who their names. The guys who gave them to me. The seeds, the herb. It's like that's just
3 wise men.
The 3 wise men. So hopefully I can be like I just want to be like that for somebody else. Be able to give somebody
Right.
a chance to grow something cool or whatever. And I connected with another couple people and connected with a U.S. service member that got some seeds from Afghanistan when he was on his tours there, and brought him back. And I started the Afghan Hindu Kush project. I had a friend that had family in Mozambique and Malawi. We had them, we had some seeds from them, popped those. We got the Malawi Wowie now and a couple other strains from those lines. So, we also try to do the, F2s and preservations to keep those, lines as they are, as close as possible, but then also bring those special qualities into some of these, more hype strains or things that we really like that are more, I call mainstream or, 8 to 10 week strains, that fit a certain box, but I want to take those and hit them with something interesting and shake things up a bit and kind of open up Pandora's box a little.
So I've got a few more questions for you on the breeding topic. I noticed we also we could go on and on about Jadam and Bokashi, which we want to talk to you about, but we'll probably have to bring you on for another episode because we're almost running out of time for today's interview. Before we get into those questions, I do want to give a shout out to everyone in the CannaBuzz community who's been watching along. It's been cool to see them talking and chat about what they're up to. And also shout outs to our friends at TikiMadMan and Terploc and Grove Bags. But so my question was, actually, first question was going to be about when you were just talking about the different strains that you have. Could you recommend, because you got me really excited. So could you recommend if I go on your site or on your Instagram or wherever, what should I look at for growing inside and what should I look at for growing outside? Do you have some recommendations for me?
I get that question a lot. What's better growing inside? What's better growing outside? The plant does well in both environments. It just depends on your growing climate. And typically if you're in the United States, you're going to want to, we're not, if you're in Florida or something like that, it might be different. Closer to the equator, the more sativa you can grow. And the longer it's going to take to flower. If you want something to flower short, get something that's going to flower short. An 8 to 10 week strain. If that's 8 to 10 weeks indoors, it's going to be a little earlier outdoors, right? So it kind of still. I think it doesn't matter a lot of times. Especially the way that I grow, the way that I breed is for vigor. I want things to be super healthy, super vigorous, respond well to topping and training, good branching. All those things equate, well indoors, and outdoors, in my opinion. So I would say, outdoors, the Afghan stuff just does really well. It's really mean. It's really hardy. It's really vigorous. But there's also some that finish really nice and short, 8, 9, 10 weekers. I would say that's a good place to start. when you get into like things like the Taste the Rainbow and things like that, which is, great strain, you might get closer into like the 10 to 12 week. If you're looking for like an 8 to 10, I would say Afghan hybrids. So that's a great place to start.
So, so piggybacking off that, or kind of the next step or our next question was going to be about is it a challenge to kind of market your company since you're not, hitting Mach 1 with everything, or have a, runs cross that you can talk about or whatever? Is it hard to kind of break through and get people to jive with what you're talking about, or, talk to us about that?
It took years. When I first set out on the mission, I literally was laughed at, and I was told that no one's going to want to buy sativa stuff. No one wants that, and I said, well, I do personally. I know that there's going to be somebody else that does. I know there's older people that are coming online that are going to be missing, the skunks, the hazes, the AK-47s, the more sativa dominant things that they were used to growing and smoking. So yeah, it's difficult, and everyone wants feminized seeds too. Everyone wants feminized. Everyone wants auto. Everyone wants, something that finishes in 8 weeks and hashes well, right? Some of the trichromes that are super juicy, they don't hash well. They're water soluble. Soluble, and they just get washed away with the wash. So a lot of them don't wash well. They're really great squishers. They're really great smokers, and they have crazy amounts of cannabinoids. But like the Malawi, Mozambique, those don't necessarily wash really well. But man, that's like a smoke you've never had. So I think I just keep doing what I'm doing. I keep pumping out what I believe that is missing, right, and that needs to be worked. And I feel it's like if you build it, they will come. Like I do this to do what I love for a living, to survive, not to like make tons of money and go like on extravagant trips.
Take
Like
over the world.
I love doing what I'm doing, and it's enough. It's enough.
Right.
So when I make big sales, it's like, yeah, that's awesome. But like really, I'm like just trucking along and like just I'm breeding constantly, I'm feeding hunting constantly, I'm popping seeds constantly, looking for something special. And people that grow my stuff, they feel me, they vibe it, and then what they do is they share it with their friends, and they share the herb, they share the stories, and people. And I do business. I think how business should be done. I hook people up. I answer people's emails. I try to be as accessible as possible. I try to set myself apart in as many ways as possible. And then, I do, the fun packaging is great, but like what really comes down to is people growing the seeds and posting pictures and sharing with their friends and sharing with me. And then I can share, and everyone gets to see what's actually coming out of these packs. Cause that's how I sell seeds, is by, word of mouth, the third party validation, you growing the seeds, you telling your friend, that friend buys a pack of seeds. That's how I try to run my business. And like, it just, it's easier. And that way I can just be more, genuine, and less, pushy a lot of times, and just let it kind of come. We do a lot of auctions and things like that to kind of keep things, fresh and keep the prices low and get people in. But yeah, it can be a challenge, and it was a challenge for years. It's becoming less of a challenge the more people get to see what's inside.
Well, I think what's cool. Sorry, go ahead, JR.
I just want to say shout out to some of the DGC who've kind of turned me on to you.
Yeah,
taking
100%.
tops.
Banner, number one, taking tops. Banner had me on the show. Get to know your breeder. If you guys want to take a peek at that, kind of goes.
Yeah, the Know Your Breeder series on the Dude Grows channel. Check it out.
That was awesome, and I think that's that's the reason I came to do the DGC Cup. That's the reason you and I even met. So yeah, thank you DGC and the whole DGC community that's been super supportive. But yeah, it's like it's all a network, and just linking up with good people, and like that's it, and I'm happy to be a part of the conversation, and thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, well, we're going to be doing some more stuff with you. I'd love to have you come back on and start kind of dive into some of the Jadam stuff, and then with Dude Grows, we're doing some new stuff too. We would kind of like to get you involved with as well. But I did want to shout out to Grambo. He did some work for
Yeah.
you
Let me
for
get
your
the-
packaging. I'm telling you what, the
let me get-
presentations on Instagram and the packaging, I mean, he did a fantastic job. And the way he was able to animate all of that into a clip
Wasn't
that
that
you could
cool?
post,
Wasn't
I
that
mean,
cool?
yeah, to me, that's money well spent. I've been trying to get other breeders on board, and I showed them the work that he did for you, and I mean, he did fantastic job.
He did, yeah. He did. Yeah, he did 10 individual images, and then he took all those images and, like you said, he put them in a slideshow, and just, I was blown away by that one, like you said. And yep, he did a great job. So yeah, shout out Grambo. I'm gonna be sending him a pack of everything that he, at least a pack, probably two or
Oh
three.
yeah,
Oh yeah, he needs them. Yeah, at least just to have them, and then
yeah.
yeah, like, and somebody else can grow some of the other ones I give him. But yeah, he did a great job. We try to, we try to get as many different artists in as possible too. We got, well, a buddy of mine was doing the artwork for a long time, and then he was able, or wasn't able to do it anymore. He just ran out of, he was out of time. He got a big boy gig, doing like 13 hours a day and doing all kinds of stuff. But that opened the opportunity for us to look for more people. Grambo came in, filled that spot. We're having another guy do the Taste the Rainbow line, because they were kind of overlapping, and I didn't want to like have him do both of them at the same time. But yeah, we'll probably be using him again too, because it was
Nice.
a great time.
Well, the nice thing
Great
is you have to be able to present yourself in a different way. Trade shows are dead. Media is here. The data and digital world is what we're all becoming to know, and community wise get together. And so to be able to have your stuff put together in such a clean package and be presented like that in the digital world is a powerful tool.
Yeah, and
Very
I always saw that. My mom has owned her own advertising agency for years, and she's won all kinds of awards, but she used to do it for home builders. And you're right, image sells everything. And like I said, a lot of people are like, oh, you got a fancy packaging, that's great. And that's how I get people in, but like I get people to stay by what's inside the pack.
Totally.
But it is
Yeah.
it is a lot of fun. And I do feel like it really does bring new people in, because like when you're either online 100%, but when you're at a trade show and you got all your stuff out, I've had people just buy seeds of, someone's wife. I like that artwork. I want that
Yeah.
back. That
That's
looks
true.
so cool. I have a Star Wars theme or whatever, whatever it is.
I got that one.
Yeah, exactly. And it keeps things fun. And then like once you're like, people want to collect them, and that kind of gets into a whole nother realm. But yeah, the artwork is it. I talk about it like so much, but it is necessary, but it can be a pain, and it's a
Yeah.
challenge, and that is the work. That's the work part of it. I love growing these plants, and this is probably getting these printed off and getting shirts made and all that stuff. That's the challenging part. But like you said, that is what gets new people in, to kind of see what you got going on, because
Totally.
that's the flash.
Yeah, and I was gonna
Yeah.
say, I think it's really cool that the community, the grassroots community movements, I think can make the strains like you're talking about, and just make people value that contribution to the gene pool. I feel like we could make that happen. We could manifest that. What it was making me think about was like how JR found Cherry Paloma. And now, through the DGC, we have like guys like Matt growing in Michigan who are growing Cherry Paloma like in the rec market, and that's so cool. And I think I just feel like we could, from the bottom up, almost kind of like influence, because if all of a sudden
100%.
these growers, these recreational growers or whatever you want to call them, if they see people smoking stuff that is interesting and gets people excited or whatever, they're going to have to start taking interest, and maybe they can start hitting their stuff with your stuff and make some new combinations or whatever that fits their needs.
100%. And you kind of touched on it earlier, and I kind of brushed it under the rug, and you were asking me, when I was working all kinds of these odd jobs and coming up and I hadn't made it yet, you're like, I always thought like that I really did think that there was a chance that I was going to be coming from the bottom. And I kind of like, not positioned myself, but like in a sense, like kept all that in mind. Just what you said is like, what does the market need? Right? What does the market want? And what do people need? It's like, they don't need more of the same thing. They need something different. Right?
Yeah.
I want something different. So like, I was really analyzing that as I was kind of coming along. Like, people didn't listen to me when I first started. A lot of people still don't listen to me, but you do it for long enough, and you make enough points, and I learned a shit ton, working at Kind Love. But I knew what I liked, and it wasn't all the same that was out there. I knew that when you looked on the shelf, it was like, well, what the hell these aren't choices. These are all the same. I want something different, So I knew I wanted something to bring something different to the market. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but kind of from, like you said, from the bottom. And that's how a lot of things start. You get things in the hands of people, quote unquote, at the bottom. But guess what? We rise,
Right.
Eventually we get up, together. And like, yeah, sure, you might feel like you're at the bottom or whatever, but like, keep going, because it's like, in however many years have that much more years experience. Don't think that you're doing a little bit. You're doing it now. That's how you start.
Yeah.
It's like, you just got to keep doing it. So, but in connecting with the right people and really staying true to like what you believe and like what you feel is right and all those things. So that's just,
Yeah. So we talked about this kind of topic recently when we were talking about a Portland event that JR went to, but I guess I just want to encourage everyone, get involved in your local scenes and help make that happen, whether it's in Colorado, like the DGC Cup, or it's in Portland, like the PDX event, or here I am in the San Francisco Bay Area, people have sessions and things like that people host, and like support those things if you can, or if it's not that, support a local plant shop that's cool with you talking about weed in a workshop setting or whatever it is. Like, support those things, because I think that's going to be how we can, one of the ways that can be how we influence the community and do that kind of bottom up influence.
100%. Yeah, speak with your dollars, but also, and it's really important. These things are so important. I really appreciate you having me on, giving people like me a voice to like, because people really want to hear what we all have to say, and you guys give people a voice and start the conversation. So thank you for doing that. And it's important. The online presence is so important, but what's so important is showing up to events. Show up to events. Go to your local farmers market. Go to your local pop-up. Go to your local smoke sesh. Plan one a year. Do something. It's like a lot of people during COVID, they got so comfortable, myself included, just like making money from a distance and like being connected from a distance. This is great, but like, there's nothing like shaking someone's hand and passing a joint, or having a conversation. It's different. Those events are different. We connected at the event. Yeah, I remember both of you. This isn't a new. We're not meeting for the first time. We met at the event. We got to know each other. So it's like we were right next to each other in the booth. So I feel like I just want to encourage people to like you said, just like you said, find those local sessions, find those local smoke shops, find those local grow shops, support those, go to those events, because I've been to events where no one shows up.
Exactly.
And everyone's like, how was that event? Well, no one showed up. And I've had the events where people just show up out of the woodwork, and you're like, and it just, obviously they're different vibes, and you feel so supported. It's like such a community vibe when people show up, even if you don't buy a damn thing. You don't have to buy anything. Just show up. Just keep showing up. So
totally. Well, this has been great, Brett, and JR put in a lot of work. He's got some questions about Jadam and Bokashi, so we'll have to bring you back some other time, maybe some other weekend or during the week. We'll add in a extra show to bring you on again. But I had a great time today. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking me on, and it was a good time. Let me know when you want to get together again. Make it happen.
Excellent. I want to remind everyone to shop.cannabuzz.app. Go out there and get your CannaBuzz hats, get your gear. We appreciate it. Show the love. And we always have kind of a final question. And my final question is what was one of your real shit your pants moments in your cannabis journey?
Ooh, Okay. Okay. One of my real shit my pants moments in my cannabis journey. So I you I was I did really well at cloning, as we were talking about. I was a proficient cloner. I thought I was the best cloner ever. This was
Yeah,
5 years, 6 years ago, 7 years ago.
right.
And I had took on this. I'd cut a lot of clones. Behind the scenes, sold them. Done whatever. Yeah, I'd sold a lot, done a lot of cloning in the industry and out of the industry. And there was this like gray market deal that I was a part of, that it was going to a dispensary and I was cutting the clones. And I was getting clones for I had certain strains that they wanted, but it was like a $20,000 project. It was like a $20,000 deal. And it was a lot of things involved, a lot of numbers. It was it was basically, it was like 10,000 clones, and from all different sources. And this was before I knew about all the different bugs, right? I knew about certain bugs.
Oh
Well,
no.
I ended up getting russet mice,
Oof, yeah,
and it
particularly brutal.
and I got 85% of those clones got fucked. And they were all done and rooted and looking pretty and great. And within 4 or 5 days, it was like, okay, what the fuck? And then I deliver, everyone saw what was going on. I didn't know. I was like, they just look weird. If you've gotten rusted before, they don't
Yeah.
just fucking die. They don't turn brown. They just kind of start to shrivel up. It won't drink. But they were rooted and everything was good. And they took them. Well, they it ended up just like going down the fucking drain. And I got, like $1,000 and a fuck you out of it, but it was I'll take it. It was my responsibility. It was my fault, 110%. But there were various factors I didn't have rusted mites. I had a clean grow. Everything was good. I had a few, broad mites here or there every once in a while. Spray some green cleaner, you're good. Rusted mites are a little different if you haven't ever worked with them. And they were sneaky bastards. So
Yeah.
that was one thing. Now I know about rusted mites after that experience.
Yeah.
It made me a better grower, but it ruined a relationship and cost me $19,000.
That's kind of a shit your pants moment, right?
Yeah.
So
I thought I was like, I'm gonna come up,
yeah, here I am. I'm coming large, baby.
Yeah, and then
we're
just
gonna eat
fucking
good tonight,
on my
honey.
fucking back, and I thought I was just done forever. And just keep going. I felt terrible. I still feel terrible.
Tip
Life
out
goes
there
on.
for you guys listening: micronized sulfur. They sell it to the wine industry. You can get it in giant buckets for cheap. Just use your sulfur for 4 to 5 applications, and you'll be good to go.
Cool. Yeah, I've heard good things about sulfur. Luckily, I haven't ran into them since then. I ran into them in a commercial facility, but that was their fucking problem.
But and you'll see that new growth. That new growth just comes out, and it's all kinds of funky looking,
wrinkly,
discolored, and wrinkled.
It almost looks like a pH issue at first.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, but yeah. Like I said, appreciate you having me on. We'll talk Jadam, Bokashi another time. We have a little bit of Bokashi left on the site. We're almost out. Heartandsoilproject.com. You can find all of our goodies on there. Stickers equal seeds on the website. So you'll see that we have stickers for sale. All stickers come with 10 or more regular seeds per pack. It helps us keep Square happy. It was selling stickers. And
we've been there.
Yeah, so what is today? Through the end of next week, we're doubling all orders on seeds there. So
very cool.
And no, if you guys want to put CannaBuzz, we're doing that for everybody. But if you guys put CannaBuzz there in the notes, we'll get you guys a little something extra. So we're doubling all seed orders. You don't need a code for that. But if you guys want to put CannaBuzz in there, you'll get a little something extra from me, just as a thank you for listening and and like so we'll keep you guys stocked up too. Hopefully give you guys some seeds to start giving away and all that fun stuff. Keep everyone growing.
Very cool. Well, you actually covered what I was going to ask you, which was like plug your stuff. So your website and your Instagram. So hit that real quick.
So Instagram at Heart and Soil Seeds. That's where you can find all of our auctions. We do auctions a couple times a week, especially on the weekends, on new stuff, old stuff. That's a fun place just to kind of be, on the weekend and just see what we got going on. We do all kinds of crazy deals on those auctions at Heart and Soil Seeds. At Heart and Soil Project on Instagram is a little bit more like we try to mind our P's and Q's there. We lost that account for like 7 months, and then we got it back. We're up to 19,500 followers, so we're trying to be cool over there and just connect with as many people as possible. If you guys have any questions like cannabis related or anything related, the best place to reach me is on my email at banderson@heartandsoilproject.com. You can reach out, ask me anything, and I'll get you the best deal. A lot of our stuff isn't on our website. We like to have our artwork done before we put it on the website so we can have that whole you're buying stickers thing going on. So we have a lot of stuff that's not on our website. So if you email me, you'll get that. Discord is the last and final plug. That link is in our Instagram, or you can email me for it. But basically, we just talk all kinds of cannabis. If you post Heart and Soil pictures, we got people helping people on, all those questions you had for me. A lot of people post, hey, I'm trying to grow outside. What's the best Heart and Soil pack to grow outside? What have you guys seen? I'm having this pH issue. I'm having this issue. What do you guys think it is? And everyone will kind of collectively get together. It's a great, like a grow forum. We do giveaways there. We do a Sunday sesh, kind of like this. We just little, so that's a good place to be if you guys want to check out the Heart and Soil community. And but yeah, email is a great place to reach me. But Discord is like a little bit more like kind of an Instagram feel where you can like chat more freely and you don't have to wait for the whole email thing a lot of times, not catching each other or whatever. So, but yeah, that's about it. Other than that, I'm around.
Great. Well,
nice. I can't wait to see you again, buddy.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us.
It was great chatting, and we'll do it again sometime.
Well, everyone who's watching us, thank you so much for watching. Make sure, if you haven't already, to subscribe to the channel and like this video so that the YouTube algorithm blesses us with more viewers or whatever, however it works, the magic behind the scenes. Also, we have more interviews coming up every week. We've got interviews booked pretty much for the foreseeable future. So just keep on checking back on the YouTube channel. We get the episodes up pretty much every Thursday, Friday. So stay tuned for that. What's our next interview? Do you know off the top of your head, JR?
Yeah, the next one's going to be a hot one. This is going to be Big Jim Davis, and he has a commercial farm here in Oregon, and me and him kind of started out in the medical journey together. He went one way and I went another. So we have a lot to talk about how things shook down in the state of Oregon and how other states could maybe be a little mindful of what they vote for and what they allow to happen, because there's obviously been some fuckery.
Well, there always is. You got to be mindful. Always be mindful of the fucking
Very true. That's a good. That would be a good T-shirt, or like a good like hardcore band or something. But all right, and then shout out to everyone in the CannaBuzz community. Make sure to use that code GrowersLove for 50% off. You can join us for as cheap as $4.20 a month, plus that 50% off, and it really helps support us. We're gonna give away a pack of seeds to one of our viewers at the end of this live recording, and then also shout outs to our friends over at grovebags.com. Use that code CannaBuzz for 7% off your next order and cure your weed to perfection. And then, as always, shout out to our friend TikiMadMan at tikiseeds.com and hit always his great deals. But yeah, that was a great show. And as always, JR,
Growers love.